You know, I think practices that have this technology, you know, I think that they do get referrals, absolutely, from other patients who maybe they know their family don't like impressions. They've had new referrals, and also orthodontists who do Invisalign, they've seen an increase in case acceptance and case and Invisalign cases up to 10% on average, which is quite incredible. And they don't really know why. It just seems to happen that their cases go up. Of course, you don't need to store models anymore. You've got an archiving function. And I'd like to think, certainly with the iTero, and I think some of the other technology that's coming, is it's kind of future-proofed. You know, technology sometimes is going to get a little smaller, a little lighter, a little more modern-looking, whatever. But the fact of the matter is this STL file is universal, and if you've got the STL file, you're kind of future-proofed, which is good, and which is something that you need moving into the future in any technology you buy. There's a lot of universities with this technology. Griffith and Westmead are latest here in Australia, but you can see it's a who's who of universities around the world, and hopefully James Cook will be not too far behind. And also some teaching institutes. I mean, the most popular one there, probably I would say, would be the Pankey, or obviously LVI. LVI I like it particularly because of the way that it takes the occlusion, and there's a number of LVI practitioners here in Australia that have the system or are looking at getting the system, so that's really exciting too. Now, we've spoken mainly about crown and bridge, a little bit about orthodontics. But what else can it do? Now, because you can take the STL file out, you can put it into something else. Now, this software that you're looking at here is a implant planning or oral surgery planning software. It's called InteGuide. It's similar to Materialize or Dolphin. Both do exactly the same thing. I just so happen to know the guy that sells this, and he gave me these beautiful images. These are courtesy of Dr. Greg Peake in Brisbane. He's an OMFS who does a bit of lecturing on this software. So the image on the left is your CT data image, or your DICOM image, which is the InteGuide software is used as proprietary algorithms to create a three-dimensional model. The problem is, of course, is you get scatter, and it's not so good at distinguishing hard tissue from soft tissue. It does a pretty good job. The image on the right is the same patient, but scanned with iTero. So you've got the opposite. You've got no hard tissue data, particularly no bone, but you've got the soft tissue and the teeth. Now, I don't know how well you can see it there, but certainly there's 3 points on both the left-hand picture and the right-hand picture. And they use those as a reference to get the two to merge, if you like. So the next screen shows the merged data. So you can see on the left-hand side the blue and the kind of grey image together. So again, you can now start to plan implants with a true representation of the soft tissue and the tooth data in place, which is really, really powerful. I never thought for a second when I joined Core 3D I'd be selling scanners to oral surgery practices. They don't like to take impressions, which is what they'd have to do right now, or get the dentist to take the impression. Then they have to find a laboratory or a company that has an open scanner that they scan the model, then the data comes back. So the oral surgeons like this particularly because it's so fast and almost instantaneous. Also, a lot of oral surgeons that do a lot of orthodontic surgery want to get into this technology, because obviously any delay from the impression to when the operation happens, teeth often are still moving fast with orthodontics. So this allows them to plan for orthodontic and have orthodontic wafers, they're called. Materialize does it almost within a week rather than 3 to 4, which is the traditional way of doing it. So most of the software, InteGuide, Materialize, and Dolphin, all will accept an STL file from the iTero system and import it into the existing CT data and merge it so you've got both soft tissue and hard tissue data, which is really quite exceptional. And that's available right now. You can see just here the actual implant planning itself. I don't know how many people are familiar with this technology, but it's very good, it's very intuitive, and allows you to see beautiful images of both soft and hard tissue. And of course, a lot of these what are called stents or implant guides are often either tooth-borne or soft tissue-borne. and because of that, you don't need a stone model anymore. The data that the ITERO produces is good enough for you to go straight to the guide, which is excellent. Another thing that kind of found is it's quite cool with, I don't know how many people use 3i here in Cairns. I should know probably because I used to be the national sales manager. But the Biomet 3i encode system, I think they've called it Belitech now. What it is effectively is this healing abutment that's also a scan cap, which is very cool. But of course, because it's a scan cap, what they were traditionally doing is taking a normal impression, pouring up the model, and then scanning the model. Well, of course, with the ITERO and with other systems that come online, you don't need to do that. So a patient presents with an encode healing abutment in place. You don't have to take that off. You just get the patient in the chair, open their mouth, and scan it. What then happens is that data goes to 3i. And 3i actually use a modified 3Shape software to analyze and decode the encode, because obviously healing abutments of a certain size and width, there's markings on the top of that particular healing abutment that allows you to know exactly the platform, the height and depth of where the implant is. It's just reverse engineered. It's exceptionally clever when you think about it. So what you're looking at here is the ITERO scan getting decoded, and if you watch carefully, you'll see that it'll move into an abutment design. So this is all you've done is take an impression of the healing abutment. Now you have an abutment design. So then that modified file then goes to CAD to produce the model. So the model comes with the abutment in place, not the encode, the abutment design in place. So the lab starts to work on that as if they're working on a abutment level impression. So you can see here, this is exactly the same case. So the abutment hasn't even been created yet. The abutment's being milled in 3i in Florida. The models are being milled in Calgary with the abutment design in place. They then make the crown and check it. This is the actual final abutment. It's a titanium abutment with a gold nitrate coating on it, with the crown in place. The abutment goes in. So the first time the healing abutment comes off is to put the final restoration on. That's really powerful stuff. And then the crown's in place. So that's happening right now. Actually, I tell a lie. They've done over 2,000 cases in beta. They haven't quite launched it commercially here in Australia, but the encodes are available. The scanner can scan the encodes. In fact, we've got 2 sites here in Australia that are doing it and doing it very, very well. So watch this space, but it's incredible technology. Straumann also. Straumann are one of the main distributors for the ITERO in Europe, and they've got their own scan body, but because of the patents on the encode system, they actually use a removable impression or scan impression coping, if you like. So you take the healing abutment off, you put the scan body on and scan it, and it works in a similar way. And Core 3D are working on their own range that'll work on almost every implant system available in Australia today, which is very exciting. That's really it, almost perfectly on time. Is there any questions, or would you like to see a demonstration on the ITERO, and then maybe have some questions? Anyone, any questions? No? Well, what I'll do is, I haven't quite done it this way before, so you'll have to forgive me. I'll have a typodont here, and the ITERO, for those of you not here in Cairns, for those of you in Mackay and Townsville, there's our broad scanner along, and I'm going to scan this typodont, and there's a 3.6 prep in here, and what you'll see is the scanner working live on the typodont. It's the best I can do, I'm afraid, but it's better than nothing. So I'm just going to switch across and do a quick scan. There we go. Okay. So I've pre-filled out the RX, if you like. So you can see that the 3.6 is highlighted. The red lines tell me that it's going to be a quadrant scan. I filled in the material And here, just a composite, just kind of autofills in demonstration mode. And you can see here on the right of the screen both the shade, and below that there's an area for notes if there's anything kind of odd going on. And then I simply hit scan now, and I scan. Now I have a foot pedal which is wireless, and I have the wand. Now you won't be able to hear this, you might be able to see it. This is the wand. Think of it as an SLR. The lenses are in this section, the laser light source is here. These scan tips are disposable. Okay, you just throw them away and put a new one on when you're ready. And what I'm going to do is every time I'm in the correct area, I'm going to take what's called I call it a snapshot, but I've used the foot pedal to activate the camera. I have to be still for 0.4 of a second, and then it takes the shot. Now, as soon as I've taken the first 3 initial shots of the crown prep, what it will do for me is spin it around. So you can see your prep in 20 times, 30 times magnification or more, 300 times magnification, and you can see it in all its glory. Trust me, you get better at this stuff. When you first see your initial crown preps, and then you see them as big as this, it does tend to make you think about how you're doing things. Then you pick up the interproximals, which is probably the trickiest shot to take, because it can be a little tricky, especially at the back of the mouth. But the interesting thing is even though some of that image isn't in focus, because of the parallel confocal technology, it will still pick up the detail. Now that I've taken the prepped area, I then take effectively one shot of each of the surrounding dentition on the buccal, and I then do exactly the same on the lingual. Now, I'm not sure if you can hear this on the microphone, but there's actually a small, it's not really a compressor, it's like a diaphragm, and it pushes air out across the lens, which means you don't need to heat the lens or the plastic cover. It actually stays completely free of mist, and the technology also deals fine with saliva and blood. It'll either scan through the saliva or it'll actually scan it, so you'll see it on the prep. So the conventions of good impression taking still hold true. You need the area to be clean and dry, you need good retraction. It can't scan what it can't see. Now I'm just going to do the opposing. And I actually find it easier in the mouth, if you can believe that. Holding a typodont in one hand and a wand in the other is quite difficult. I would suspect most people in this room with 10 to 20 minutes tuition would be able to scan a quadrant in about 3 to 4 minutes. So you can see that it's building the image. And what it actually also does, which you can't actually hear, is it actually tells you which teeth to scan. So it really kind of is as easy as that. I'd like to make it more complex, but this is the part I like the most, is taking the bite. So you get the patient to bite into close centric, okay? And you just take the shot and you'll see that the 2 images will just snap into place, and you're done. And that's how to take an impression at 8 microns accuracy. So what it's now doing is it processes the image. So you've got to remember there's probably nearly almost a gigabyte of data there. So not only is it cleaning it up, it's also doing some clever stuff. If, when I was taking the buccal, the tongue was in the way, it knows that it's not there because I then take a lingual shot. So it kind of extrapolates the information and gets rid of the remnants of lips and tongues. It does it exceptionally well. As I said, it does need good retraction. It can scan about 3 to 4 millimeters subgingivally, but with it being light, it has to be in a straight line. So long sort of bevel edge preps that some prosthodontists and dentists do, it doesn't cope well so well. But obviously with just your sort of slam dunk crown and bridge work, inlays and veneers, it works very, very well and very consistently. And because it shows me high points, it shows me the occlusion, I can see the impression from the lingual and the buccal, I know I've got the perfect impression. And that's a powerful thing in a busy practice. So, let's see if I can get this. Okay, so you can see immediately there's a high point here, okay? So if I'm looking at a very small screen on here, it's kind of weird, but let's go with it anyway. So here's, okay. So what you see here is a buccal, and if I just spin that around, that's the lingual. And can you see all these holes? What I've done is I've turned off the hole filling for this demonstration, so you can actually see clearly how much data it picks up in a first pass. But most of those holes will be filled in with really quite powerful algorithms that knows what a tooth looks like. So it's particularly powerful. So if I can show you. So you can see how that's now changed to show you where the actual areas are filled in. So that's the shot I like the best, which is the buccal, but you can see that every day, but you can't see this every day, and that's while the patient's still in the chair. So you can look at it from the lingual, you'll look down into it like a normal conventional impression. And if the patient's got a heavy bite, that will be picked up because you'll see little white spots where the opposing is actually coming down into the occlusion. And you can even look at it from the back of their head. So let's look back at that high point here. Let's take away the upper there. So what I can actually do is I could take my high speed, adjust that area, and when I'm ready, is I can just draw a line around the area that I've adjusted, okay? And it deletes that area, and then I simply scan to fill. And the scanner will immediately turn on and take me back into that one area. You rescan it after your adjustment, and you're ready to go. So it effectively allows you to know that you've got exactly the preparation that you require, the space that you need for any type of preparation. And that's kind of it. I'd like to say it's more complex than that, but it's really quite simple. And in most cases, we offer a day's training, but in most cases, people are kind of wanting to get to real life patients within just a couple of hours. Once you understand what it's doing, which is just basically, it's like a panoramic function on a camera. It gives you a piece of the last image you scanned, and it wants you to overlap, so it knows where to put the image, and then it will just fill it in as you go along. Pretty cool, eh? Any questions? Yeah, it's an interesting question, which was, I don't know, did they hear that in Mackay? Shall I repeat the question? Yeah, so the question was, is there any difference between the accuracy between a conventional impression, EFD, CEREC, and iTero? Now, the companies are very secretive about the respective accuracy of each of the units. And actually, I don't think there's been a study done yet on comparing all three or all four conventional EFD, CEREC, and iTero. What I can tell you is that the software, the dental design software in the dental laboratory factors in a 50 micron cement gap. I know a couple of docs who asked the lab to take that out and to try the crown on. They couldn't get it off. In both instances, they had to cut the crown off because it fitted so snugly. So is accuracy that big a factor? I'm not so sure. Marginal accuracy is, as I was going to say, is not so much the coping. Marginal accuracy, I think there has been a study done, a double-blind study on 200 units, some were done conventionally, some were done with iTero, and 70% of the doctor preferred 70% of the restorations that were done on the iTero. That's the only study that's been done, marginally, and just general integrity. What I can tell you is that if it didn't work, I'd have about 50 of these sitting cluttering up the office. People, I think it's quite subjective, but people feel it's a better fit. It fits down first time every time. There's very little adjustment. In fact, there's often no adjustment, and about 60 to 70% of the times there's no adjustment at all, because the lab has got a more accurate bite record and a much more accurate model to work from. So I think that's the key. It's more about the consistency and the information the lab has to build the crown rather than the actual micron integrity around the margin, if that makes sense. But I'd love, it might be a study that some of the students might want to do here. I'd be definitely.
You've got the same thread in and out.
You're absolutely right. But as I said, if you like, I'm more than happy to put anyone here in touch with the doctors that have it. They're very enthusiastic about it and will absolutely tell you honestly, doctor to doctor, what they feel. And I don't know anyone that's asked for their money back, and most of them say it's saving them so much more time, not just on the impression taking stage, but also on the seating appointment, and that's one of the keys. The cost. So the cost between a normal laboratory model and these polyurethane models from iTero. Interestingly, a lot of labs factor in the cost of the model into the restoration cost. So you don't actually, it's often not itemized on the bill. So it's a bit of it muddies the water slightly. The labs I speak to factor in between $40 and $60 for a stone model by the time it's sectioned and pinned. These models are between $25 and $35, $25 for a quadrant, $35 for a full arch with multiple dies. So in fact, they're the same, if not less, than a conventional model from a laboratory, but of course they're of a higher quality in terms of accuracy. The articulator is reusable. You get two with the machine anyway, and if they want to buy some more, they're about $100, I think.
The full arch impression, just to continue on what you just did, so that
yeah, so it's a little bit of a grey area because of the limited time I have, but if you're doing let's just say you're doing a full arch of crown preps, it would be a continuation of that, and it would certainly take longer than it would with conventional impression techniques. However, the seating appointment will be shorter because you've got more accurate information, so it swings around a bit. However, say if you're taking a scan for Invisalign or if you're doing a study model, it's a slightly different scanning technique where it doesn't tell you which teeth to take. It allows you to overlap almost freely per quadrant. So, and because you can fit about 1.5 to 2 to 3 teeth anteriorly into each image, it's much faster. So an Invisalign scan would take between 10 and 15 minutes, depending on operator skill level. If it's just for an archive, like a study model, you don't need as much information. Again, the algorithms do a good job. I'd expect about 6 to 8 minutes. The fastest time I've done it for just a record was 8. The fastest I've seen in a Invisalign case was about 12.5 minutes. But as I said, full arch, crown and bridge, you need those extra images of the preps because you need the extra accuracy around that area.
Just wonder about the occlusion on the articulator.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's still a plain line articulator. and the laboratory technician is still going to fabricate the crown, so you still have the same problem with that articulated, that you'll have distal, perhaps premature contacts. So that may not be faster seating.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely...
Margin-wise and things, that may be fine.
The articulators do move a little in different planes, but there are mounting plates for traditional articulators like Stratos and Dana and a couple of others. So you can mount it onto a true articulator. There is also, which I didn't really mention, in the 3Shape dental design software, in the latest incarnation, which is the 2012 software, they virtualized each of the popular articulators in the market. And to see those in action, seeing the actual true articulation is really powerful stuff. So I think that's the next step, is virtual articulation. So watch this space.
Last question, if I may. If you happen to drop this, in the case of your dental does happen, how much would that cost to repair or replace?
It's an optical device, and it is like an SLR camera. The first thing I say after I say hello at training is, have you insured this for accidental damage? It is expensive. It's the brains of the operation. To replace that, you'd be looking at about $7,500. It's basically almost a quarter of the cost of the machine itself. It's got lasers, it's got the same micromotors that are on the Mars Lunar rover, it's got very specialized optics in it. It's an optical device, and it doesn't play well with hard surfaces, so you just have to be careful with that. You need one of those Nintendo Wii straps, I think, around the wrist, so you don't throw things at the telly. I think you need one of those for that. Yeah, don't drop it.
All right, well, thank you very much, Ross, for bringing us from the Stone Age into the polyurethane age, I think, from what we can see tonight. So please join me. Thank you very much.